What up, Chicken Nuggets? Tyler here with the Sports Cards Are Dope podcast. SGC Pete hath stepped down as president of SGC, and so now there's going to be some changes for our favorite grading company. Let's talk about it. Okay, so first off, I'd like to say my son Titus, he said he wanted to join me on the podcast. I was like, dope, that'd be awesome. So Titus doesn't collect, but he asks really good questions, and also he has good insight. So we thought he'd throw him in. It's going to be mostly me talking. Don't worry. You're like, I like a guy who's got like a feminine, southern-sounding voice to be in my podcast. Oh, that's not changing. But my son Titus, you want to say hi? Anything you want to tell him? Hi, nailed it. First try. Okay, so if you have any questions, just let me know or say it. This is our first time. We have not rehearsed this. But thought it'd be a great episode because this is an episode about something I really care about. If you're on the YouTube, I'm literally wearing a shirt I got made of my Jackie Robinson SGC 1 because I love SGC. I love them. I've collaborated with them in the past. Told you guys that. I've collabed with them on a few different things in the past. Love them. I've talked to a couple people that work there multiple times. Some of them I've talked to a lot, and I really like them. I like everybody I've ever interacted. I like all of my experiences with SGC. And they just have had some big changes. We know around a year ago, a company called Collectors, who owns PSA, the largest grading company in the world, they also purchased SGC, which had been probably the last 2 years had been rising in popularity. And I want to give you guys some thoughts on where I think they're going, what I think this means for us as collectors, and if I think it's a good idea. And I mean, I say that I've never ran a grading company. These people are obviously smarter than me because they're running successful grading companies. But how about this? There are some things I'm going to think we can take away from what is happening. Not exactly some of what they're saying, but a lot of what they're doing. And this is Tyler's opinion. This is not from SGC, from PSA, anything. This is Tyler's opinion. Okay, so I'm going to read y'all some quick stats about where grading is, because I know sometimes we get in our bubble, and I talk to people, and people comment on my videos, oh, PSA is king, SGC ain't worth nothing, blah, blah. I get that trash all the time. Here's the deal. The actual facts and numbers are SGC, no, they do not have a majority of the market share, but they, over the past 3 years, have been slowly chipping away at the market share. Market share is the total amount of grades. PSA has 80% of the grading market across all the companies, and the 20% is the rest of them fighting for it. Beckett, by the numbers, has been dropping. I know there's some people like, people still love Beckett, still trust Beckett. Beckett, I'll be honest, they're doing absolute dog water at how they are marketing and running their company. I'm sorry. If you're from Beckett, I know a lot of people from Beckett listen to us. But they're like, that's the company that should be number one because they had the most brand recognition for any millennial getting back into cards from 2020 on. We all collected, marked in our, I was talking to my dad and he collects 0 cards except for what I give him on his birthday. And he knows Beckett. He knows Beckett because he sat there and marked it off with me. They should be number one, but they have not been running their company well, and they have not been collaborating with people well. They've not been growing it in a way they should. I wish they would, but they are not making choices to help the company grow, and SGC has taken their place and stay. Honestly, they were in first 7 years ago, Titus, and then PSA took over about 5 or 6 years ago. They started going ahead of them, and they have bypassed them by far. And then SGC's passed them in the past 3 or 4 years. Beckett's in like 4th or 5th place, okay? So I'm going to give you some actual numbers. Y'all ready? 2024, okay, a couple years ago, 2024, there were about 20 million cards graded by PSA, SGC, CGC, and Beckett, okay? PSA alone handled about over 15 million of those, which is about 75% of the grading market. By far, not saying it's the best grading company, but they grade the most cards, okay? Sports versus TCG. Out of that, CGC recently has come up, but of PSA, this is what they look, oh, SGC is only 10% of PSA. They're about 10% of total graded. Most of what's graded with PSA the past 6 months has been Pokemon and TCG. So these guys that never even glance at a Charizard, they're including in the numbers because it makes them feel good with their PSA. SGC does not have a big share in the Pokemon or TCG market. They have if you look at just sports card numbers, they have 20 to 25% of what PSA is grading in sports cards, okay? Now, here are the numbers. SGC's growth, y'all ready for this? Sorry. Of the growth, SGC has graded they graded about 1.87 million cards in 2024, okay? Now, that's a 46% increase versus 2023. That is huge. Of those, 1.72 million were sports cards. So all but like almost all of them are sports cards out of that. Okay. Now they've got about 15% of the total sports card graded in 2024. And again, that was a big increase. Now that momentum carried over to 2025. In the first 6 months of 2025, PSA graded 8.89 million items, while SGC graded just under 1 million. Okay? That's up 3% from the year before. They just, Sports Card Nonsense had Ryan Hogue on there. He works for PSA. He's stepping in. I think they're stepping in to take over because Pete, the beloved president who's helped SGC grow to second place in sports cards over the past 7 years, he's stepped down and he went on Sports Cards Nonsense and he said a lot of interesting things. But one of the things he did say was the way they want to start viewing SGC is that it's more of a boutique grading option. And by boutique, we know that's more specialized. It's more, you think local card shop versus like, Card Vault by Tom Brady that's going to have like a card shop open every month. Like they're not there yet, but you know what I mean? Like a bigger scale, like a Walmart versus like a Harps.
So they're like the luxury brand of like the cards. Like
yeah, they some people view it that way. There's some people that view it as like you're saying like a Lexus versus Toyota.
Yeah, like how car companies have their like special cars they make, like Range Rover or something like that.
Yeah, versus like Land Rover. Yes, that's the thing. You would say yes because honestly, and you can talk to anybody who knows sports cards, thinks that SGC is better at grading. Like they don't say, but the only thing PSA really has over SGC is that they grade more cards and their resale value of anything in the past 20 to 30 years sells higher.
But that's just because of popularity.
Yes, that's something I was going to get to later, but that's a great point, Titus. And here's my trend. Here's my thought. You have a company, Collectors owns PSA and SGC, number 1 and number 2 in cards. Okay, card grading. They have SGC that is on the rise, and no, they don't have a majority, but they are trending up. They have a company that has been scaling up at this rate, and the rate is not linear. Linear means it moves a certain amount every year and year. It's the way it moves from what I've seen in this industry, it is more exponential. And I've sat because I have a lot of SGC cards. I've sat at tables and people will want to buy my cards that are SGC, and they will say to my face, like breakers, repackers, not breakers, but repackers, people that want to buy and then flip it. Their hesitation for buying SGC cards is not that they don't think the quality of grading, not anything beyond. There's not enough comps for them to feel comfortable selling it or putting it in a repack. They have to have comps or else they'll get blasted by their audience for assuming a grade versus PSA, which again, you said popularity, they grade more. As SGC keeps getting more cards in more markets and it keeps growing, like it's not a question if you're buying a vintage baseball card because that's what SGC was popular for 15 plus years. They were the go-to with vintage baseball. And so there are more comps there, so people feel more comfortable getting new stuff graded because they're trusting of the comps. As they keep filling the market, you're going to see, I think you would have, if they hadn't actively suppressed the growth of SGC, you would have seen an exponential rise in that over time. And I think you would have seen that gap closing more and more. But you're like, well, Tyler, $1 here is $1 there. Why would PSA want to stifle SGC's growth, which they are? They are actively saying we're pulling a bunch of people off this is Ryan Hogue again. He said we're pulling people off the SGC team and we're putting them on the PSA team. So they're pulling people from that and they want to get back to they're like saying we want to get back to quicker turnaround. Yeah, the reason you can do that is because you have less cards to grade. The reason SGC now takes a month instead of 5 days to grade your cards is because more people want to grade with SGC. There are people that don't always want to grade with PSA. And I said this in a short video. Clever Cuban Cards had a really great video up on his TikTok. If you get a chance, he's an awesome creator. And I did a reply, and you only have like a minute, so you don't have a lot of time. But he didn't say this. Ryan Hogue didn't say this. And this, again, Tyler's speculation. There's only one reason collectors would want to say, hey, because I'm bouncing back and forth. But Ryan Hogue said, we don't want to put all the money we put into PSA to grow the technology and like all the stuff they've done to grow PSA like as a whole company. They don't want to put that into SGC, and they know they need to take SGC to the next level. He said because Not because that it can't compete with PSA. It's because he said it didn't make financial sense for them to put that money there and have two like Goliath like card grading companies. They essentially didn't want two equal sized towers. They wanted one tower to be strong and the other one to stay at a certain amount of levels. And they wanted to actively suppress that. My opinion, the reason that they don't want to do that is not because, oh, you'd have to put money into it. We all know how numbers work. Like they put money into PSA growing that way because they knew they'd make more money out of it because it would grow. And it did. If they did that to SGC, it would keep growing and become more and more and take more and more of the whole market and help grow it. But they don't want to do that. And Tyler's opinion, my opinion on why, is because they make a lot more money grading a PSA card versus an SGC card. SGC is more affordable and they don't have as many upcharges. They don't have a yearly membership like the Collectors Club. Like it is more affordable to grade with SGC. They're not a cheaper company. In my opinion, they're better at grading cards because they don't just hire out graders. They don't expand their grading operation. They have people come in. And I've talked to people at SGC. They have an expert team of graders. People have to come in and apprentice under those graders for a certain amount of time before they're ever allowed to start grading on their own. Like they are much more, from what I understand, deliberate, and they put more training into their graders than PSA does. Therefore, you don't see near as many outliers on cards where I got a PSA 6 and I cracked it and sent in and got a PSA 9. Like that happens all the time. You don't see that as much with SGC. And it's because their graders, I think, they're overall, they do a better job of grading. That's Tyler's opinion. I like them, call them biased, whatever. But all you can say is that PSA Modern sells higher. Cool. That doesn't mean they're better at their job. Like I like SGC and I think they do a better job of grading. And so I think they're actively holding that down because they want to keep growing PSA and they make more money off PSA cards. That's why they're doing it. It's the only reason you would do it. But here's the thing, and here's the negative of that for that company. Just because I've had my LCS guy when they called, because one of the ways they're stifling this is they've essentially cut off any dealer discounts for bulk submissions. So a lot of times these grading companies, all of them do, like all the main ones do, they have a bulk discount. So a local card shop can have people bring in cards and they'll submit the card store's cards and their customers' cards, and they'll submit them all together and they get like a $1 to $2 discount per card, which you throw in a couple thousand cards, that's, $3,000 to $5,000 in discount that you get, and it makes people come in. About a month and a half ago, I was talking to one of my LCSs that bulk subs with SGC, and they said someone called and said, hey, we're not doing the dealer discount anymore. We're not doing bulk submissions through this anymore. So, and they actually recommended that they try to bulk submit with PSA. So a lot of these card stores are going to start bulk submitting with PSA. That's going to increase PSA. The problem is not everyone wants to put their stuff in a PSA slab. Like I have several cards I want to get slabbed up. I do not want them in a PSA slab because the red border does not look good with the card. I don't like the way it matches up. I don't want to put in that slab. I want it in a different slab. Like it's not my preference. And there's other cards that doesn't make financial sense for me to send off there because of the costs. And so they're playing I think Collectors is playing a dangerous game with this because they are risking losing people to other companies. CGC, Beckett. I mean, even some of these new ones, Arena Club, Tag, like these new grading companies, somebody's got to fill that second place void. If this company is going to actively press down on SGC and try not to grow it, that's essentially what they're doing. They're taking away all of the things that would make this SGC grow. And here's the thing, that it's not because SGC doesn't make money. They wouldn't have paid what? I think the rumor was $100 million is what they bought SGC for. They essentially bought second place, and then now, about a year later, they're like, all right, we want to chill. And the greatest indicator, I think, besides like dealer discounts, all the little things they're doing, they're allowing the guy, Pete, the president, who has been in charge of it the last 7 years, took it from like almost obscurity, just vintage baseball, to now the number 2 in the space. He's helped that company grow, and now he's not going to be working there. The only reason you let a guy that's done that go is because you don't want it to keep growing. That's what I think.
So they fired him?
No, they didn't fire him. He literally had a release on SGC's actual Instagram. So it wasn't even on his own. Like on SGC's Instagram, they had a written release saying that he's going to be stepping away. Apparently, he still has a great relationship with them.
Okay.
But honestly, if nothing bad happened, my guess is Pete is someone who's helped it grow. They don't want it to grow anymore. They want to grow PSA.
So I guess he retired himself. Like he quit himself.
Well, yeah, he's saying he's leaving and he wants to take some time, but then he wants to, honestly, if this is what should happen, my opinion, Beckett, go hire Pete and have him be the president of your company and tell him to do whatever he thinks he needs to do. If Pete can do that with a company that was where SGC was 7 years ago and take it to where they are now, a company like Beckett that should be number one because of brand recognition in this industry. Think of what he can do there. Like if I'm Beckett, I would straight up go say, you tell me how much you want to get paid. And then they stick him in that role. If Beckett wants to. I don't know what Beckett wants. I don't know. They keep making choices. I have no clue.
Yeah, trade LeBron to the Heat.
Why are you trading?
Get it? Because like you're trading a guy he was on the SGC. It makes sense.
It made sense in your head, but you need to communicate that. You know what?
It's gone. It's
gone. We lost. Let's move on. Sorry. Here, a little closer to the mic. We want to hear these goodies like that. All right, so here's my thought. I wrote this down. I don't want to forget to say it. So I had a couple questions that I would love your thoughts on too in the comments. But I'm going to kind of give you my thoughts, but I would really prefer your thoughts, okay? And let's all talk and converse. Number one, if SGC was closing the gap, why would you shrink that? Why would you suppress that? With their growth, it'd be like Netflix, which is number one in the streaming space. It'd be like if they bought Hulu. And Hulu kept being on the rise. They bought it, and then they were like, you know what? Hulu's just going to be for live basketball games, or it's going to be for indie movies. There's going to be just for like specific things, but they're going to still move the bulk of their stuff to Netflix. That's what they're essentially doing. They're wanting one of them to move. It's almost like they're sacrificing the SGC to move PSA forward. It's Bing Bong. Bing Bong jumping off in Inside Out, jumping off and pushing the wagon forward so that Joy can get to the top, and then Bing Bong fades. I don't think SGC is going to go away. It's going to have a place, but it just doesn't. I'm sorry. It just doesn't make sense to me because I saw the trajectory of where the growth was going with the SGC, and $1's a dollar. Why would collectors want all the dollars to go to? Here's the thing. They talk about the money and leveling it up. Really, I wrote down what they needed. This is what SGC needed. It needed their app to add in a couple features where they can scan cards and then put them in. It needed a set registry. They need a set registry for SGC. Like as someone who has a bunch of sets in SGC, I want a set registry. All you have to do is in your PSA app, all you have to do is incorporate that spreadsheet, the whatever they have on SGC's app that has all the list of all their stuff and their pop reports. Stick that. I mean, Alt can do it across all the companies. I bet it's not hard for you to get that API and put it in there. And then where it says PSA, have a little slash and then have a black. You have the red PSA / black SGC. Elevate SGC and move them both forward. Why would you not do that? Because there's a ton of people that prefer SGC over PSA, not the majority. That's obviously PSA. We know that from the numbers. But the fact that you're actively making it harder for those people to keep using it and not pushing that company forward, I think is a missed opportunity. It reminds me of Google. In the early 2000s, they'd taken off and become the number one search engine. They're past Yahoo as a search engine, okay? They tried to start doing their own video stuff. Well, they looked around and saw YouTube in 2006, 2007 take off and start doing really well. So what did they do? They did a smart move, and they did exactly like collectors did, and they bought SGC. Google bought YouTube for $3 billion. YouTube's worth over like $200 to $300 billion now, probably. Wow. Like they went in and bought YouTube. But you know what they didn't do? They didn't say, well, YouTube right now is doing really well, and it might surpass our search engine for people searching because they can search on YouTube or they can search on Google, and we can bring up videos. No, what did they do? They put those together. And yes, they're separate inside of the like Alphabet. That's the company that owns Google and all that stuff. They kept them separate like entities, but they're like intertwined. And it is so easy. Anything you use in Google Classroom, when you do a Google search, you're going to get YouTube videos first because they know it's all under the same umbrella and it all makes the same dollar. Why would you not turn all of your technology that you already have and just incorporate the SGC stuff? Like make it easier for me as someone who prefers SGC. Elevate that brand, and then you have two brands that can work together. But instead, you're essentially sacrificing one because you want to elevate the PSA brand. And so, growth is like Here's the scary thing, and I said it a second ago. You're not guaranteed. PSA is not guaranteed to get everybody that's leaving SGC or all the card shops that are submitting bulk. They're not all guaranteed to go to PSA. Yeah, your resale's better. Sure. There's a lot of other factors in why people grade stuff. I just had a situation with, I'll tell you right now, I wasn't planning on talking about this. SGC is the best company by far in customer service. Anytime I have an issue, anytime something's going wrong, anytime a package hasn't come in, they say, don't worry. I've never felt like if a package gets messed up or lost, I'm out that money or it costs me any more. They always say, we got it. We'll take the hit over you taking the hit. They are responsive. They will talk to me. I just sent a bunch of cards to PSA a while back. I use their app to just scan the cards. It's super easy. Scan, boom, scan, boom. You just select it, click it. Sometimes you got to manually enter it. And then it sorts it into the groups for you. It sorted them into 2 groups. I had probably 30 cards in one group and 20 cards in the other. And it split them into 2 groups because it said they were different categories, but they both fell under their bulk discount. So I got it for like $17 per card. Well, I get an email while I was on a cruise that said, turns out in one of your orders, the 20 card order, 2 of the cards didn't fall into that bulk discount. So because those 2 cards were pulled out of that bulk discount, instead of 20 cards, I went down to 18. And they said, we can either ship it back to you, which now I'm paying the shipping fees, like all the fees I've already paid. I'm now paying that again to resend them, find 2 cards and resend them. Or I can just be like, all right, well, yeah, just go with the new price. And I even asked them, like, what is the price difference? And I said, yeah, I accept it. Just do it. And then they said, okay. They never told me the price difference on anything. They said, okay. And then like literally a few hours later, I realized, oh my goodness, it auto split it into 2 orders. And so why can't they just stick those 18 cards with that other order? And now I get the bulk discount. Instead of me, because I did the math, I'm now having to pay an extra like $130 extra because they pulled those 2 cards out. And then I called PSA because they like split them and they never responded to my other email about me asking like, hey, could I do this? They never responded. Or they were like, oh, sorry, you already said yes. And so I called and talked to PSA, somebody else, and they were like, nope, you said yes, so we put it in the system, we can't do it. And I said, I'm paying an extra $130 because I trusted your app that you have in your app to sort my cards for me. And they're like, well, but you did accept. I go, yeah, I did. And then a few hours later, I realized it, but like, why was that not even an option for me? Why would you not say, hey, I know you, it looks like you used the app to do this. I'm sorry I did that. I see you have another order that literally was shipped with it and came in the same box. We'll just stick it to that one. It wasn't even an option. I had to think of it, ask about it a few hours later. And because it took me a few hours to think of it, now I'm charged an extra $130. And then that person on the phone said, well, since you already started it with that other one, reply to that email thread and they should handle it. I replied to it. It was about a week ago and I've got no answer. So PSA, and that's not the first time PSA hasn't backed up their own stuff. I bought cards that I thought were not legit. I'm afraid to send them in because the way it reads with PSA is I could be out $1,000 if that card, they say, nope, it's actually fake. We messed up because they messed up and I bought it trusting their own stuff. I lose $1,000. Like it just, I've not had good experiences with the customer service with PSA as recently as last week. And I know for a fact that would not have happened that way with SGC. And the upcharges and all the other stuff that bothers people about it, they're just like, no, we want you to deal with that because we make more money at this company than this company. And that's essentially what it is. And it's frustrating for us as collectors, but also I didn't have $100 million to be able to buy SGC and run it the way I think it should be ran. You know what I mean? Like to run it myself. I say it was already being ran perfectly. I say kept doing what you're doing. And let's actually lean into the marketing because all they did for marketing was they had a few collabs and they, with like some creators, Sports Cars Nonsense. I've collaborated with them on stuff. They had a few collaborators and then they would start showing up at shows and they're growing 49% in 2024. Like, just think of what they do if they actually like started doing the stuff that Ryan Hogue said they didn't want to do because it would have cost too much money. Think of where they could have grown.
Well, do you think that SGC had better customer service because they were a smaller company?
It's a great question. Great question. They were growing as fast as they were, and every time I had an issue and I called them, I still got the same customer service treatment.
Really? So even like your early days, it was the same customer service as your
recent? And I could talk to an actual human. Again, I talked to a human at PSA, but I talked to a human who actually helped me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead of saying, sorry, you made a mistake. Gotcha. And that's what I said to the guy on the phone at PSA. I was like, hey man, I see it's an obvious thing that I shouldn't have to pay that extra amount. I could just put it with the one that it was with instead of being like, oh, sorry, you replied yes to the email. It took you too long to realize it. I don't know why it wasn't even an option. Like, they see my account. Like, couldn't they have done it?
Yeah, oversight on their part.
Well, I would think so. But also, here's my thing. I do a lot of marketing stuff. I've done like I'm big, Donald Miller, if you've ever read his story brand book, Build Your Mission. Like, I'm a big, I've helped companies build their mission statement, their core values, their guiding principles.
Humble brag.
It's not a humble brag. Yes, it is, I guess, a little humble. I'm just trying to say it as like some validity. Thank you, Titus. This is why you're here, man. This is good stuff. I love analyzing businesses and trying to figure out their core motivations and values. I think SGC, while it was trying to grow as a brand, I think they were trying to be accurate graders, get people their cards as soon as possible, and have great customer service. If I summarize SGC, those would be the three. If I summarize PSA, what I would probably say is they make a push in marketing to get their face out there and stuff. They remind people that their stuff sells higher because that was on the front of the building at the National. We sell higher than everything. And they want to make as much money as they can. Like that. Actually, I'd put that third one as number one. They want to make money. Oh, every company wants to make money. Yeah, they do. But they put that above everything else. I don't think SGC put that above customer service or being good graders, because they could have hired more graders and grown faster. They didn't. They want to train their graders well. PSA has a system. Maybe they do grade them. I don't know how PSA trains their graders. I just know I get a lot of rando grades. Oh, it looks like they copy pasted 8 on this order. I say that as somebody that's coming out tomorrow, and I have a lot of cards at PSA. So PSA, if you're watching, I doubt you're watching, but if you are, please don't grade my cards poorly. So
don't spit on his cards.
Yeah, don't spit on my card. Don't spit on my cards. I feel like I've already kind of said some rough stuff. Here are some other potential pitfalls that I wrote down. PSA is not guaranteed everybody that's leaving SGC because of this. They're also taking a bunch of employees from SGC and transferring over to PSA. They've got an office. They're sharing an office space now in the same park or area as SGC. And so they're moving people over in that. They've announced that. Ryan Hogue talked about it. I didn't hear him say anything about rehiring those people at SGC. So they're taking some staff, which would mean if you said you're trying to get them back to the faster turnaround, I don't know how taking people off those teams helps with fast turnaround.
And wait, if they go to PSA, are they going to work in like an SGC department or like
no?
Is it dissolved?
So no, it'll still be there, but from the way he described it, they're pulling people over into the other offices
to make PSA stuff bigger.
To essentially give PSA, because PSA is over on the West Coast, like California area, and SGC is in Boca Raton. I'm wearing a hat, Will Chamberlain, Boca Raton. It's in Florida, and so essentially an East Coast store now. So like when it first got bought by collectors, a lot of people thought, oh, PSA is just going to get rid of SGC and call it PSA East Coast. And now they have one, so you can get your cards there 2 days faster than you would shipping over here, which now they do have a base on the East Coast, but they just didn't get rid of SGC. They just took a bunch of employees and moved them over there.
Okay.
So I feel like they could have gotten to their financial goals if they'd have elevated both instead of suppressing one to help, like growing one at the expense of the other. But again, I didn't buy the company, so they can do whatever they want. This does for collectors. What does this mean for us? It reduces the competition a little bit. If your LCS can't send in bulk deals to SGC, it might not make financial sense for them to send SGC bulk deals in. So you're going to send more PSA or Beckett or whoever that you're doing bulk deals with. And so a lot of LCSs are going to lean that way. SGC, we've already seen a little bit of a hit the past couple months, but now I think we're going to see more of a hit. You got rid of the president that helped it grow. Like there's no way it doesn't. And then the other ways they're actively not growing it. This hurts because less competition usually leads to the number one person in the industry getting to charge higher fees, and they feel less pressure to do specials or anything, because that's SGC doing Bowman specials and all these specials they're doing. I saw an increase of PSA specials. Not to say they didn't do them, but I saw more of them because they now have to compete with SGC saying, we'll do it for $12. They're like, oh, we're 25. And so the turnaround times, if those move over to PSA, are we going to see even more backlog at PSA than we already had? Because this SGC taking a little longer, going from 5 days to 20 business days, like going from a week and a half to a month and a half. PSA is already like 2 to 5 months. What's it going to be if more and more of those bulk submissions go to PSA and it gets slowed down even more? So your turnaround times there are going to be longer, and SGCs still could be shorter, but again, you have to send it in individually. Anytime, and this is every industry, anytime there's competition, that spurs innovation. You're going to see, I think other companies are going to start elevating. Like I genuinely think some of these AI grading companies, like I made that reference earlier about a grader having a bad day and giving me all 8s on my brand new cards. Like, or they're having a good day and I get all 10s. Yay. And I'm just dealing with whatever it is they felt that day. I think it's crazy that we don't have an AI grader or something like tag. I've only got like 1 card, I think, graded with tag, maybe 2. It was a great experience. It has a QR code. I can go in. It actually doesn't just say like a 1 to 10 grading scale or a half scale. Like I actually see a number of like how good it is on that. Like, yes, it falls under a 9, but I can see the actual total score and it has AI grading to analyze that. Arena Club uses AI grading. I made videos on that before. Like some of these companies that are coming up with more reliable, sophisticated ways to grade, I think you could see one of them possibly start, again, not take the whole market share, but start taking market share. And then it starts snowballing as more and more cards of theirs get into the market. So if you don't think I'm going to be reaching out to like Tag or, whatever, any of these other companies and be like, hey, I've got a below middle level social media stuff. I'd love to collaborate with you. Like I would love to try out some of those grading companies. I think that would be awesome. And so I think anytime new companies emerge, it creates competition and it doesn't sit there. Like in the education, my main thing is education. Blackboard. You may have used it when you were in college. Blackboard was the #1 online thing for 10, 20 years, but they never upgraded what they had. It literally stayed the same. And then so many other companies came to the market, surpassed it and left in the dust. And you were like laughed at if you were still using Blackboard today. And so it's like these companies need to push each other forward because it makes it better for everybody else. I think they're trying, it sounds to me like they're trying to get SGC back to where it was before it started competing in that market and getting to second place where it was just vintage baseball is what it sounds like they're wanting to do. That boutique model that they keep saying, like boutiques are specialized and it sounds like they want it to be specialized. And I think my assumption is it wants it to keep the market it had before and let PSA take the rest. And then the last thing is market perception. Slabs, from what some people might deem as a secondary brand, could drop in resale value. If somebody has a lot of SGC slabs, I don't like this for the value of my cards. Granted, most of the cards I grade with SGC are like PC cards of mine, or they're like cards that you don't have a high pop, so it's hard to comp anyways. So like I'll get legacy cards or 90s inserts, and I'll grade them because I've found that if it's not a just more common card, I can do better because there's less comps, and SGC might not have as many cards of those in the slabs. If people in the hobby perceive PSA as the only mainstream option, it could hurt that because that's the one they're going to stick comps for. And it's the issue I've found in a couple places with certain people. So I don't know. Those are my thoughts on it. Titus, you got any other thoughts or questions? Anything I didn't mention that or I can elaborate on?
So if you were collectors or that company, what would you have done if you bought SGC?
Dang, that's a good question. If I'd have bought SGC, if I was collectors, not me, Tyler, if I'd have bought it SGC, I'd have done a couple things different to keep it growing, and I would be pushing to grow it. But like I understand, you're saying from the perspective of collectors who owns PSA and SGC, you buy SGC, I would literally look at PSA and say, okay, what worked here? And I would start doing that there, like marketing side, like if it's guys, whatever it is that I'm trying to do to branch that out, like I would do that, hire those people, and then I would start sharing that technology you spent all that money on. I would easily incorporate SGC stuff into that. Like there's so many apps, like what collectors bought, Card Ladder. Card Ladder is a great app. Okay, you can put your collection there, do all that, but you can tell when you use the app, it is geared towards PSA. You can you can scan a PSA slab and it automatically puts it in your vault, all that. Why not just easily bump, because they've got like PSA Beckett and CGC and SGC. Why not just stick SGC as your second? Like move it above Beckett, all the other ones on the list, get it to where you can scan in an SGC slab. Like make it just as easy for me to include my SGC stuff into set registries. They have a PSA set registry where it's like, can you collect the whole set in PSA? Have it to where I have a PSA set registry. You've already got the technology. Just open up a side of the app I can click the SGC button, add my SGC set registry. Like, again, I had not made that app before, but I would think it's a lot more affordable to just incorporate something into an app you already have versus build that app over here for them too. Why would you not just build it in there? Like, I would view them as equivalent sister companies. That'd be essentially like me being like, well, I have a son, and then my young other son, you know what? You're gonna live out here outside of the house. We're not gonna send you to trainings. You don't get to do piano lessons. You don't get to get all this. You don't get to get tutors, and you're gonna go to this school across the street. I don't think is as good. Like, that's terrible. And yeah, it would just be, you wouldn't do it there. And this company, like, why are you actively not trying to grow this other one that has been growing just like you did this other one, and then combine the forces? Like, I really was kind of excited when they bought them at first, like, oh no, but then I was like, no, this could be great because they could bring all the stuff that's working at PSA and all the stuff they have that SGC needs to grow more and incorporate them. But I haven't seen it. I haven't seen them put them in the app. I haven't seen them build their stuff out or make it as easy or pretend like their company matters as much to them as PSA. It's like some movie where a rich father's like, actually, Brandon's going to Harvard. And then they talk down on their other kid. Like, that's what they've done, in my opinion. They're like, oh, let him do his thing. And then, oh, you're actually doing too good. Like, you're taking some of the shine from Brandon. We're going to send you to boarding school. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's what they're doing. And it's just crazy to me. Unless the people that are running it care more about PSA because maybe they built that or built that company or more involved or more of their cards are in PSA slabs. They care more about that side of the company than the other one they just bought because they wanted to be able to control their competition.
Maybe it's because it's easier to run one company or in a big company and a smaller company than two
big companies, which is what Ryan Hogue said. And maybe it is, but if they're both making you money, why would you not? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, why would you not just grow them both and make the money on both sides?
Because with the Google and YouTube thing you talked about, like, Google didn't like I never see Google stuff on YouTube. Not much at all.
No, but guess what? The number one department that runs all of the Google programs is Google Ads. And there are ads on Google and ads on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you can make money from both and figure out how to make them and grow both. But
without destroying one of the...
Without thinking that you have to grow one by suppressing the other.
Yeah.
And so I'm really interested to see where this goes. I'm interested to see what happens in the grading space. And CGC, like I said, most of what PSA grades is Pokemon stuff. And CGC grades a ton of Pokemon. So maybe you're going to see CGC start taking more of the sports card market because I don't see a lot of CGC slabs at shows. I still see a ton of Beckett stuff. I've seen more and more SGC. Used to, when I go to shows a couple years ago, you would find a couple tables that would have SGC stuff, but most tables are PSA, Beckett, or Raw. Like, they barely have SGC, and if they do, it's because they got it in a trade or whatever. But the last year and a half, I mean, every table has all three. And you might get one or two vendors who are like, I'm PSA only. You know what I mean? Like, you might get a couple of those guys, but most of them have started accepting it. And then especially these young people, they don't care. They don't care at all. Like, they're not these old heads who are like, this PSA is what I've had my whole life, or Beckett's this. They're like, oh no, I don't send to Beckett because their website looks like it was made in 1994. Like, I don't use their stuff, like, which it does. And so, I don't know. I feel like you could have raised both instead of suppressing one. And, you know, again, I've got cards at PSA. I send cards to PSA. I send cards to SGC. I have a couple cards that I sent through my LCS to Beckett. I've never sent to Beckett directly, but I don't know. I feel like you could have done both. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Sorry, this is a much longer episode than normal. Titus, thank you for being a part of it. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you, sir.
You were a valuable part of the team, and I love you just as much as your brother. I will not suppress you to try to lift him up.
Can you feed me tonight?
Nope. You get it tomorrow. We'll see whatever Finn doesn't eat. So thank you guys so much for listening. Y'all be good. Titus, thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you.
If you want to like, subscribe, you can. No pressure. Follow your heart. And let me know your thoughts in the comments. That's what I care about the most. Y'all be good. Stay sweet. And never stop collecting. Later.